A law-abiding citizen who is exercising his constitutional right should not become a felon by exercising that right while he is traveling through a locale merely because he has not obtained a license to carry for that locale. Today, we head to a place that is a major contender for my least favorite places on the planet, and that is the state of Massachusetts. Although, if this case is any indicator, maybe it's getting a little bit better there. I don't know. Time will tell. And what we're talking about is a case that challenges the constitutionality of license to carry schemes as they relate to state-to-state reciprocity. So if you are good to carry a firearm for self-defense in your home locale and suddenly you cross a fictitious arbitrary line drawn on a map, that right seemingly just goes poof and you no longer retain a constitutionally protected, God-given, inalienable right to self-defense and self-preservation that has always set really strangely with me. Well, this case takes that to the map. Special thanks to New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin decision that we've been talking about quite a bit lately for crushing this one. So I'll give you a little bit of background. We got this guy, his name is Dean Donnell. He's a resident of New Hampshire, and he carries his firearm into the state of Massachusetts. He's jammed up for that and goes to court, etc., and he challenges whether or not this regulation is constitutional. How he challenges this, in my opinion, is chef's kiss perfection. How the court responds, again, in my opinion, is what should be the gold standard for all courts across the United States as it deals with this issue. And I will tell you all about that in their own words right after I pay the bills for the computer and the lights and all that sort of stuff. So stick with me for just a couple seconds. Kentuckiana Gunworks is best known for their research and development into lubrication technology. Their enhanced reliability oil is the product that I choose to use to keep my stuff running year round, and they've also recently released their minimalist quick-released sling retainers. KGW offers VSO subscribers a discount, and you can find that information over at the affiliates page. Special thanks to them for making today's video possible. The defendant, Dean Donnell, is charged in the Lowell District Court with carrying a firearm without a license under this statute. The defendant has filed a motion to dismiss the charge in the complaint, claiming that, 1, the statute is unconstitutional on its face, the statute is unconstitutional as applied to the defendant, and 3, the statute violated the defendant's right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment. The court continues, there is no question that the holding of the United States Supreme Court, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin, has changed the legal landscape on how the Second Amendment of the Constitution is interpreted, particularly how it affects existing firearm statutes and challenges their constitutionality. The question is, what effect does the Bruin decision have on the status of an ordinary, law-abiding resident of the state of New Hampshire who exercises his constitutional right under the Second Amendment while traveling in Massachusetts? Bruin articulated a two-step analysis in determining whether a law or regulation of constitutionally protected conduct is unconstitutional. First, courts must determine whether the Second Amendment's plain text covers the individual's conduct. If so, then the constitutionally presumptively protects that conduct, and the government must justify its regulation by demonstrating that it is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearms regulation. To carry its burden, the government must point to a historical precedent from before, during, and even after the founding that evinces a comparable tradition of regulation. Only then may a court conclude that the individual's conduct falls outside the Second Amendment's unqualified command. A law-abiding citizen who is exercising his constitutional right should not become a felon by exercising that right while he is traveling through a locale merely because he has not obtained a license to carry for that locale, which now, under the holding of Bruin, has to be issued to an applicant unless the applicant is otherwise disqualified. The standard for who is a disqualified individual must be the same. Otherwise, a state may decide to impose different requirements on the exercise of any constitutional right. For example, some states could impose different age limits on voting in elections. This court can think of no other constitutional right which a person loses simply by traveling beyond his home state border into another state, continuing to exercise that right, and instantaneously becomes a felon subject to mandatory minimum sentences of incarceration. An individual only loses a constitutional right if he commits an offense or is or has been engaged in certain behavior that is covered in 18 U.S.C. section 922. He doesn't lose that right simply by traveling into an adjoining state whose statute mandates residents of that state obtain a license prior to exercising their constitutional right. To hold otherwise would inexplicably treat Second Amendment rights differently than other individually held rights. Therefore, this court finds this statute to be unconstitutional as applied to the defendant. All right, Kurt, cool story, bro, but help brother out. TLDR, what does all that gobbledygook mean? And specifically, what does it mean for a citizen who is not Mr. Donnell, right? Well, if you read the rest of the document, I would say first that it's only 8 pages, so real quick read, but the court lays out the lineage, starting with the Bruin decision, of how they have been interpreting firearms law against the backdrop of the Bruin decision, as they should. And they've kind of made a roadmap, so to speak, on how they started and where they are now. This case continues to walk down that road, as they should, under the decree of the Supreme Court of the United States. So they're doing their job the way they're supposed to. Now, as it relates to Mr. Donnell, I would say his criminal problems are probably out of here, but it wouldn't surprise me if the powers that be, you know, the anti-gun establishment with a huge war chest at this point in time, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they try to throw a legal battle into this. But what I would say is that they're probably going to lose as this continues to march up the chain. So maybe it goes to a farther up the chain, but I would say that probably Mr. Donnell's criminal concerns are out of here. Now, what this means for us individually, you'll notice that this is simply as applied to Mr. Donnell's case. However, what it does do, even though this is not a blanket decision that says, well, everybody can carry across state lines, if you were to get jammed up for carrying across a state line into a place that you didn't have reciprocity, well, this is one tool that you now have at your disposal, in addition to the decisions that we've talked about previously, to make a case before the courts. So this does not suddenly undercut all of the reciprocity problems that we have across the United States. But if you were to have a legal problem, then you at least have something that has been established to fall back on. I guess in closing today, what I would like to say is congratulations to Mr. Donnell and his legal team for hitting one out of the park. And I suppose this also isn't done enough. I would like to say thank you to the court in Massachusetts for doing your job the way that you're supposed to do it. We appreciate when those who hold office do what they are supposed to do as it aligns with the founding documents of our country. So again, hat tip to everybody involved, except for, of course, the district attorney that brought the original charges. I suppose you should be ashamed of yourself. Anyway, I'm out of here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you on another one here at VSO Gun Channel.